leads to a Game 4 win as Luka and the Mavs stave off elimination and win by 38, the third largest win in NBA Finals history, 122-84. Luka had 25 in the first half, most points in a Finals half in Dallas history. And you consider they had a guy named Dirk Nowitzki, who's a Hall of Famer, led them to their only title in 2011. Dallas is trying to do the impossible, come all the way back. 157 teams have tried, 157 teams have failed. 122-84, the final from Dallas, where this game was over at halftime. We are 5 wide here on CBS Sports HQ. Chris Walker, John Gonzalez, Joe Musso, and CBS Sports NBA insider Bill Ryder joining us on the Bird. Chris, this game was over at halftime. Your reaction to how it played out?
Listen, I had to listen to you at halftime trying to stir up some controversy like they had any chance of coming back. It was much to do about nothing. I was telling John that the bottom line is for some reason Dallas decided to play defense and Boston just couldn't penetrate the blue wall. I mean, they really could get nothing going. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they were terrible. Drew Holiday, just uncharacteristic turnovers. He had 5. He was bad. It was just the flow just was not good the entire game. And I don't want to say you could see this coming because I certainly thought it was going to be a sweep. I was picking with my heart. But at the end of the day, you knew with Luka and Kyrie that it was going to be somewhat of a change, and they played absolutely fantastic. And, you know, the others, the stay ready guys for the Mavericks, played good tonight.
John, did they figure something out? Did Dallas figure something out?
Dallas figured out that they needed everything to go right in order to win a game, and everything went right tonight. Points in the paint, they were dominant. They dominated on the boards. They finally made more threes. They figured out that, hey, making threes is a good thing. They should try to shoot some of those. They did that tonight. Also, congrats to Kyrie Irving. Over his last 13 against the Boston Celtics. Turns out 14th time is the charm. And to the Dallas Mavericks finally scoring 100 points. Turns out that you have to score more points than the other guys to win a finals game. That's how math works. But I think we all knew, thank you, Bill, I think we all knew that it was going this way when on the Beyond the Arc podcast, Bill decided to take the Boston Celtics to sweep, because then we knew Bill had to get on a plane and go to Boston.
Bill, we sat at this desk a couple of years ago, and I forget what the familial life event was, but you were hanging in the balance with the Warriors on your side on that night. You are going to cover some history in Boston, and maybe it does come to pass in 5 games. But your reaction here to Game 4, from an effort standpoint on the Boston side, did it look like a team engaged to you?
Joe, I'm going to answer your question only because I have so much respect for everybody at that table, but this is the Godfather 3. I'm going to pretend after this talk it never happened. It's not a real thing. It's not an actual basketball game. We'll just pretend there are games 1 to 3, and whatever happens in Game 5 going, this was ugly. Look, it's to be expected. Boston knows they have to get back on a plane either way. There's a sense of ease no matter how much you try to focus when you're up 3-0 in an NBA championship series. It's the way that it works. And Dallas playing for some pride, and that was probably supercharged by the, I think, fair criticisms of Luka Doncic heading into this game. This is why gentlemen sweeps are a thing. Remember, the 2017 Warriors, maybe certainly the best team, I think, in the modern era, or at least going back to Kobe and Shaq. One of the great teams that we've seen. They won 15 straight games. They were supposed to be the most dominant team. They had KD and Steph and all those guys. They lost Game 4. It's just a thing that happened. So my reaction is, it's a basketball game. It's expected. It was ugly, and I don't think it'll add up to very much after tonight.
John, you put it nicely as we were watching this game. You were going back to Boston anyway. Why not play a game there? Why not do it in front of your home crowd? Perhaps that is the ultimate end that we're heading towards here. But you said something there. Everything went right on this night. What aspect of this game is replicable to take to Boston to maybe extend it even a game further?
Well, the points in the paint, they dominated the points in the paint in the last game, and a big part of that is because Kristaps Porzingis wasn't available. So we'll see whether or not Kristaps Porzingis plays in Game 5. For portions of this game, he wasn't even on the bench. I think they just stuck him in the back and said, don't worry about it, get on the plane early. So that's part of it. Rebounding, that could be part of it as well. And also taking more threes. We kept saying that games 1 through 3. That's the Celtics game. The Celtics take the most threes in the NBA. They make the most threes in the NBA. The Mavs came into this with a very curious math strategy, which was trying to combat that with more 2s. And I think tonight they finally went, oh, yeah, that doesn't really work so well. So they're going to need to do that as well.
Chris, you're a former coach. What does Joe Mazzulla have to do to get this back to get this offense back rolling again? It was a stinker. We know that. But what's the message now heading home for Game 5?
I think they got to listen to Bill Ryder with exactly what he said. Just getting rid of it. And you're talking about the way they scored in the game and made more threes. The bottom line is the reason why the Mavericks were able to play with such flow is because the Celtics couldn't make a shot.
Yeah.
So what's the chance of the Celtics shooting the same way again? You know, think about Tim Hardaway made 5 threes. So those stats are a little bit skewed.
Sure.
But at the end, and Dante Exum made threes. I mean, it was, think about it. Kyrie
put some
and
respect
Luka.
on that name.
Yeah, you're right. Exum. That's the reason why he called him X.
I know. My gosh.
Think about his name is Exum. But anyway, but they're 1 for 14 from Kyrie and Luka from 3. Think about that, and the other guys made threes. Bottom line is this: go back home, sleep in your own beds, get ready to go. Do it. Probably do it the right way. Do it at home. Get number 18. Make Bob Cousy happy.
Yep.
Don't blow it up. Don't make too big of a deal. I know Bill Ryder's favorite player, Jason Tatum, will play great in Boston and get the MVP because Jaylen Brown and he together were just absolutely terrible tonight.
Yeah, this was absolutely a stinker for Boston. They'll try to wrap it up in Game 5. Chris Walker, John Gonzalez here on CBS Sports HQ. Bill, thank you. Look forward to see you on Monday, my friend.
All right, guys.
All right, this was historical in some ways. Largest wins in NBA Finals history. Anytime you can jump on that list, you will take it, even when chasing 3 games to none. The Mavs, this is the 3rd largest margin of victory. It's also the largest ever win for the Dallas Mavericks over the Boston Celtics in any scenario. Hakeem alluded to it in our pregame. What Coach Mazzulla likes to watch the town, you said?
He does.
Only one question remains. Whose car we taking?
Yes.
Yeah, nice.
Great.
122-84 is the final score. It was a 38-point win, the 3rd largest win in finals history. I mean, this is an absolute beatdown. And Dallas was in desperation mode. They had to win a game or their season was over. They lived to see another day. That day takes us to Monday. All right, back here in studio, John Gonzalez, Chris Walker, Joe Musso, Hakeem Dermish here, and Bill Ryder alongside as well. Chris, look, the adjustments. What does Joe Mazzulla say? He said, all right, we're flushing this? Forget about it. We're going to fly back. What are the adjustments here?
A couple things I think they can do. One of them that you made, a comment that you made, I think is interesting. And Bill and John may disagree, is that the referees, they let them play very physical and handsy with Boston, right? And again, that blue wall was created, so no fouls were called. And you got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown trying to get to the rim. I mean, they weren't calling anything. I love the Dallas Mavericks, but not that good of a defensive team, even though they've been great the second half of the NBA season. But they were 0 fouls called on a lot of those plays going to the rim, which those guys are normally getting those calls. And the other thing is, I think Boston's got to play a little bit faster. I know it's hard to say that, but when they set that defense up and you have that shot blocker with Lively and Gafford, it's kind of hard to score against that defense. But for me, I think the change of refs, I know it sounds crazy for me to say that, and change of venue obviously, but the changing of the refs and making the game a little bit looser, right, and less physical, I hate to say that, will help Boston.
You agree with that?
I'm just saying.
You can't expect Boston to shoot like this again, right? I mean, they've got 7 guys.
No, you can't expect them to shoot.
Yeah,
like
they've
this,
got 7 guys who can make shots. 8 when you've got Kristaps Porzingis out there. We were talking about this earlier, like what would need to happen for the Mavericks to win a game. A lot of things, including you'd need everybody on the Boston Celtics to go cold, and that's what happened tonight. None of them could make a shot. I'd be shocked, even if you had half of those guys playing well, that's a boon for Boston, and all of a sudden they're back and they're cooking again. So, the adjustment is make some shots, just get a couple of guys going, and you're probably going to be fine.
But why can't Dallas duplicate this? Why are we sitting here thinking like, hey, this is over in 5? Like, I don't want to sit here and just be like, okay, hand them the championship. They won it. I don't want to be doing that. Because why can't Dallas go into Boston and do, I'm not saying they're going to do what they did tonight, because tonight was historic.
Correct. Yeah,
but the chances of this happening, again, the 3rd largest win in finals history, this is a historic win. But why can't they go into Boston and figure a way to win there?
Because Boston's good. That's why. The bottom line is they hadn't lost. They're a very good team.
What was the line? The Celtics are the better team.
You wore a green suit tonight.
No.
It was a reverse jinx.
But they're the best team in the NBA. And to your point, you could say make more shots. But even if you don't make more shots, I think if they can get to the foul line.
Yeah.
Like when the game is called like that, and the Celtics, I think they weren't crying. Jaylen Brown has never played like this. Look at the way Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum played, and compare that. I always say you could talk about the stay ready guys and the others. It comes down to the big two. Look what the big two did from the Celtics and the big two did from the Mavericks, and then talk about the game after that.
I'm glad you said that, because the big two for Dallas, they were fantastic in this game, but there was an aspect of the game where they did fall short. Luka and Kyrie, 1 of 14 collectively from three-point range. Rest of the team was 13 of 19. Bill, if you look at the winning formula on the road, obviously there has to be some depth aspect to that for Dallas. How do they negate the top two and say, he's going to score 25, he's going to score 25, we'll match it, and we'll let our bench do what they did tonight? Most bench points since 1983, 54 points. Obviously, that's weighted towards those minutes later in this game. But how big of a plus can that be for Dallas, the bench sort of game that they can play in coming up here in Boston?
Joe, I'm going to play peacemaker here. I'm going to bring it all together. Look, I think everybody's right on this panel. I think Chris is right that the officiating played a really huge role. Now, I would argue that my friends in the league office, I promise I will hear from them if I say this, but let's say the obvious. The officiating tends to be like that for a particular team when you're avoiding a sweep, because every game matters for ratings. It does. Like, that's a real thing. And John is right. I mean, when the Celtics go, I don't know what it was, 2 for 139 or whatever they were on this evening, it's hard to beat them. Look, yes, like, it was nice to see Lively get some easier buckets. And I did think that Luka Doncic, on top of not complaining a lot to the officiating, got his other guys in the flow of the offense, created some easy buckets for some of those guys. His usage rate wasn't quite as obsessive and as sort of singularly focused as it had been. I'm not sure it does translate. I think Akeem's right. I think Dallas can win this game. But the recipe that they're going to have to use will not be the recipe we just saw in Dallas. Boston's not going to be brutal from the field, almost certainly. You're not going to have your leading scorer score 15 points. You're going to see a lot more effort from Boston, and you're not going to have a really loose Dallas team where you're sort of playing for nothing but pride. Again, and we talked about this a little bit ago. The Warriors went through this in 2017. Lots of teams got in these gentlemen's sweeps. So for Dallas to win this game, they're going to have Kyrie. It's the exact conversations we had in Boston. Kyrie's got to play great in Boston. That hasn't happened in a really long time. Luka Doncic, because it's going to be more difficult. And to Chris's point, he's not going to get the same level of officiating, is going to have to keep his cool when Boston is allowed to be more physical. And they will be allowed to be more physical because it is not a sweep that is pressing down, because the game will be in the Boston Garden. There's a lot to unpack here. I don't think much of what we saw in this game transfers to Boston, other than maybe the confidence for the Mavericks that say, look, we finally played a game at a high level. Who we were the first 3 games of the series is not who we've been that got us here. Maybe there's a little bit of a psychological switch where those role players start hitting shots, where Kyrie is aggressive and effective early on and throughout the entirety of the game in Boston. Maybe Luka can be better. John's right. The points in the paint is so big for Dallas. Easier to do when Porzingis isn't playing. We'll see whether Kristaps is there or not. So there's a world where Dallas wins Game 5. But a lot of things are going to be different, and they're going to have to be better in all those respects when that game is in Boston, and the Celtics are very motivated to close things out at home.
I want to be in that world. I want to be in that world where the Mavericks win Game 5. I want chaos, Bill. I want something I've never seen, because I have something here. Teams to lead a best-of-7 series 3-0 or 157-0 in NBA history. I want 157-1.
Wow.
Okay, I want that. I want absolute Joker crazy. Absolute nonsense.
Not gonna happen.
I know you're gonna say it's not gonna happen, but I want to root for it. Okay?
I'm with you.
I'm gonna root for it. That's what I'm rooting for. You know, also it's easy to feel pretty good when you're up by 40-some points. Luka had no problems with the officiating. Nice, and hey, it's on me. It's on me. It's on me. He's at the podium here on HQ.